Okay, I'm back. I'm trying to get this video done, and I am just having trouble at what approach I should come at it. And that's what I was thinking about, and I'm just kind of freaking out over it. Um, Revelation 13 talks about a beast coming up out of the sea, right? And it talks about how the dragon gives its power and its authority to it. We often think of that as Satan giving its power and authority to this beast. But in context, it says it's throne. It's great and great authority. Okay? Now, what does that mean exactly? Could it be twofold answer? Could it be a two-part meaning? Possibly. But think of it this way. We do get I believe in Revelation 12, and if I'm wrong, correct me. We talk about that dragon, okay? And it is called the serpent. It's Satan, that old dragon, right? But we do have another context of a dragon, okay? Doesn't mean that Satan isn't behind it, okay? But we do have another context of a dragon to look at, and that is of kings setting up their kingdom and their great authority and their thrones, okay? And setting up this kingdom, right, with 10 kings that ends up being 7. And then we have one that comes in and is an 8th, right? And he comes from the 7, right? So, how should we look at this? Because we also have Revelation 17 saying that the horns, they give their power and authority. Let me look for that verse, because just to put all of this in context. Give me a second so I can go in here. We're going to look for that. Because it's very important to put these things in context. It's very important to not take them out of context. Now, it's a very popular idea because we know that the adversary is doing all of this, okay? We know this, all right? But we also know that we're dealing with very human people because there are 2 scriptures, and I'm going to go to them right now. I like discovering things that are new, especially when it comes to this type of stuff. I love talking about God, and I love making videos about it, but I also like making things in context. So we go down here in Revelation 17, right? Is it Revelation 17? Yes. And when you look at it says, the 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet begun to rule, but they receive power as kings for 1 hour. Along with the beast, they have one mind, and they hand over their power and authority to the beast. Now, this, we see, we also see something else coming up out of the sea. It is a dragon, okay? So let's go back to put those things in context, okay? So those kings give their power and authority over to the beast, okay? All of it's run by Satan, don't get me wrong, okay? But we also look at Revelation 16, okay? And as we come down through Revelation 16, we come to verse 13. Okay, Revelation 16, verse 13. And it says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits that looked like frogs. They came from the mouth of the dragon. Okay, one came from the mouth of the dragon, one from the mouth of the beast, and from the mouth of the false prophet. They are miracle-working demonic spirits which go out to the kings of the whole inhabited world to assemble them for war, the great day of Adonai. Now, it seems like God talks in double talk a lot of times. Okay, so as he's talking about this dragon, there's you are you going to tell me that inside Satan is a miracle working demonic spirit? Is that not Satan? Is that not the three? If we go to where the beast is, or I should say Satan is put into a pit. So in chapter 20, next I saw an angel coming down from heaven who had the key to the abyss and a great chain in his hand. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, the adversary, and chained him up for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss, locked and sealed it over him, so that he could not deceive the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were over. Okay, so now we have two contexts of a dragon. Okay? See where I'm going with this? Two different contexts of a dragon. And then we have in Revelation 12, it says, the devil has come down to you, right? So, how do we divide that up with a demonic spirit versus Satan, and this coming out of a dragon that's supposed to be part of this thing? Because isn't it in Revelation 13 that we get this depiction of that dragon? And I saw a beast coming up out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads. On its horns were 10 royal crowns, and on its head blasphemous names. The beast which I saw was like a leopard, but with feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like a lion. And to it the dragon gave its power, its throne, and great authority. One of the heads of the beast appeared to have received a fatal wound, but its fatal wound, was healed, and the whole earth followed after the beast in amazement. They worshipped the dragon because he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, so now here we have Satan giving his authority to the beast, but we also have the context of these kings who are under the authority of Satan, the dragon, giving their authority to the beast and their throne. So what are we to make of this? So how do we unravel that as a mystery? It's easy. Satan goes out and gathers these kings, okay? And he puts in them miracle-working, demonic spirits, okay? To do the work that they have to do to create this kingdom of Assyria, right? And since Satan is giving them the power and authority, he turns and gives it to the beast. But also, by doing that, he makes these 10 kings, or these 7 kings now, give their power and authority and their throne to the beast as well. Okay? So, now, that's really the context. So, Satan comes down, and he creates this kingdom, and he creates the beast, but he also puts in these people his power, okay? And they, in turn, give up their power and give it to the beast, okay? That's the context. That's how we're going to look at it. And they have one kingdom. Not 10 kingdoms with 10 kings. One kingdom, okay? Now, who are these people? All right, so in my research, I have found that we need to start in certain different places. I mean, we can attack this from 3 different angles, okay, and get to the same place and still cover all those 3 different angles throughout it, okay? So, we've already attacked Revelation 13. We've come in that direction, okay? So that we can say definitely the region of the world where Babylon sat, where Persia sat, and the Seleucid Empire. And I'm gonna prove to you that these things are true. That is the region of the world in which the Assyrians will emerge. I can say that, okay? I can say it just like that. And people will say, that's an interesting prophecy. Most people will say, oh, Assyrians? Are those Germans? Because I've heard people say that. Let me tell you something. When you get into moving people and saying that they're a different race or they live in a different region, it's because you're displacing them mentally, okay, so that politically they can't gain whatever they're trying to get, and that is the old Ottoman Empire back. They want Mosul, which is Nineveh, okay, as their empire, as the capital of their empire, okay. They want what is in Iraq, okay. They couldn't do it when the U.S. was over there, and as the U.S. pulls out, as we pull out troops, more and more and more, we desolate the region, leaving it open to whomever. Okay? So, our power and authority is gone. And what is there, what remains, will be Assyrians, which they've already gained a lot of ground in their own fight. Okay? And I'm going to show you how determined they are. They're Middle Eastern. They are not European. There is no European value in prophecy. You won't find it. Okay? Not a shred of evidence. It all centers around one place, and I'm about to read that to you in just a second. After I read you this. This is what I wrote. Now, I don't know, I probably could have rewritten this. So if I change a word or two and I kind of stutter over it, that's what I'm doing. Okay. The region of the world in which the Bible refers to as North is not Europe. Europe is referred to as West, okay, in the Bible. We see the Greeks coming down from the West. Same place where the Romans were. Okay, that would be their region of the world. That would be their capital up there. It's not down here. Romans never had their capital down here. They never created a province out of Rome, okay, that broke off from Rome, that was split off from Rome in any region of what is considered north in the Bible, north of Jerusalem. Okay, they were one country that came down, like Greece was one country, but Greece itself did split into 4 parts. And we know this by history. We also have scripture that proves to us that that is true. So, how we determine that a country, which is the leopard of Greece, comes or is determined that that piece of Greece is the part of the region of the world where this empire will be built, part of it, okay, is because they did split off from Greece and they did create another province and another region in that northern part that was north of Jerusalem, okay, and they took over the kingdom as well. So all of these kings are going to be taking over Jerusalem. Okay, and how do I know that? Because of what God tells Jeremiah. So what did God tell Jeremiah? I want to make it very clear that what I'm talking about, okay? So that when we talk about these things, you know what I'm talking about. And if you need to write down some things, rewind, write it down, do so. This will help you, okay? So I was going to get this board up here and put all this stuff up there. I don't think I need it. I think I just need you to pay attention and write, okay? So if you take accurate notes, you'll see it the way I see it, okay? You'll see it the way that God showed it to me, okay? So in Jeremiah 1, God tells us the region of the world. Okay, he reveals it to us. He even does that in Daniel, but I'll get there in a second. Let's talk about Jeremiah for a second. What did Jeremiah prophesy about? Everyone says this is the book about Jerusalem. This is the Jerusalem book. Okay. So, God is talking to him, right? And he says, the word of Adonai came to me asking, Jeremiah, what do you see? I answered, I see a branch from an almond tree. Then Adonai said to me, you have seen well because I am watching to fulfill my word. That's very important. Because I'm going to read you some scriptures that say at a designated time, when God does this. Okay? So God is doing something. So if you're a person who believes that you can go to war with whomever you think the beast is, and you can push back the time, you're wrong. Okay? I just want to tell you right now, you're going to be defeated. That's first thing. And second of all, you're going to be a big fool. Because you can never override what God has said. And when you do that, you go against the very God you say you serve. You can't go against your God. Okay? He said, I have a designated time. I'm going to do this. I have a day. Guess what? You and I cannot stop that day from occurring. We cannot push it back. That would be blasphemy. Okay, that would be you working for the adversary. I hate to put it that way, but that's exactly what it is. Okay, you are not working for God if you try to go against God. His plan will go off without a hitch at exactly the time when he wants it to happen. So we don't set dates, and we don't go and try to push back whatever time we think it is. Because if you're trying to push it back, then you're trying to indicate that you have special knowledge of a time and date that no one on the planet has. They never have. They never will. You have to look for the seasons. Even God is saying, indicating here and hinting, look for the season. When you see the almond branch blooming, basically, is what that is. He's watching, okay, for the right time. Okay, you can't go against God. All right, so that's why I threw that in there. A second time, the word of Adonai came to me asking, what do you see? I answered, I see a cauldron tilted away from the north over a fire fanned by the wind. Then Adonai said to me, from the north, calamity will boil over onto everyone living in the land. The land is Jerusalem and Judah. You know how I know that? Because of what he says next. Because I will summon all the families in the kingdoms of the north, says Adonai. Does that mean he's going to summon them all at once? Oh no, over a period of time. And we know this from Daniel. We know that, okay? We know that that's the truth from Daniel. I feel like I'm far away from you guys. I need to get closer. So what does it say further? Says Adonai, and they will come and sit, each one on his throne, at the entrance to the gates of Jerusalem, opposite its walls, all the way around, and opposite all the cities of Judah. I will pronounce my judgments against them for all their wickedness in abandoning me, offering incense to other gods, and worshiping what their own hands have made. So God is punishing for idolatry. And how do we get into that perfectly? Well, I'm going to go through. There's a statue in Daniel. What does that statue represent? Idolatry. Right? That's what that statue represents, is idolatry. Okay? So when we read this, we are seeing all the families of the north. And in Jeremiah 25, he repeats it. Oops, that's not that. So in Jeremiah 25, he repeats all this. And he says he's talking to all the people of Judah and all the people of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And he's proclaiming these things. And he says, because you haven't paid attention to what I've been saying, I'm going to send for all the families of the north, says Adonai, and for my servant Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. We know this is the beginning. Nebuchadnezzar was the first. Okay? And this is going to come into play later when we talk about the whore. This very information. Okay? And why she's a whore. Okay? And I know there's some people out there who are going to think it's anti-Semitism, and they're going to be very sensitive to this information. But I want to tell you something. Have you ever gotten in trouble by your parent and they punished you harshly, and then later they came back to hug you and tell you that they love you? Well, that's what's going to happen with Jerusalem, okay? So don't worry. It's not anti-Semitic. It's just a punishment that hadn't occurred yet. And it was a final one because we had to bring our Savior through a certain group of people. So bringing them back and all of that is to give them that punishment, as well as the rest of the world who goes into that with them, goes into business and stuff with them. And we just have to go through that to get to the good stuff, okay? So, there's hope. It's just that we have to go through this phase, this horrible time. And, God has decreed it. But that comes later. We're going to talk about that later. We don't want to talk about the beast first. So if I was to look and see if I could prove to you that these are Assyrians, and I could prove to you the region of the world in which they come from. So we know that the Roman Empire never did what the Greek Empire did. And I'm going to get into that too. So Rome is not what we're looking for. Okay. So what are Assyrians? First, let's go in that. Many believe the Assyrians are German, but they are not German. They are Middle Eastern. They currently reside in the regions of northern Iraq, northwestern Iran, southwestern Turkey, and eastern Syria. In the midst of what was once a great Assyrian empire. Although they live in all parts of the world, there's no historical evidence that links them to any European nation or indicates that they have changed their national identity from Assyrian to Germanic, okay? The Middle Eastern Assyrians are stateless, but their identity with the old Assyrian Empire can be established through their religious affiliations. They're doctrinally divided or intersects, okay, into 5 sects of Christianity, dating back to the 5th century of the Christian era. Those divisions are, and please forgive me if I butcher any of them, Church of the East, Chaldean Unite, Maronite, Syriac Orthodox, and Syriac Catholic. Here's the names that I'll probably butcher even worse. So, Assyrians have been referred to as Armenian, Aramay, Asherai, Asherine, Ashereia, Asheroyo, Adorea, Jacobite, Chaldani, Chaldu, Kazdu, Malabar, Maronite, Maranea, Nestorin, Nestorne, Oromoi, Suraya, I think that's how it goes, Syrian, Syriani, Surioi, I guess that's how he is, Surioyo, and Telkafi. So, sorry if I butchered them. Please forgive me. But I got this from, you can go to I think it's Assyria.com, and or .org. I can't remember. But there are several websites that you can get really great information about Assyrians. Now, we talk about them being stateless and everything. So here we go. Assyrians were pressed to fight for what they were called the Allies in World War I, in the First World War. The French and Great Britain went to Russia, and they had a pact, an agreement that they made there. Okay, these two countries, and I'm assuming that the Russians kind of got in on it too. But it was a secret agreement. And what happened was in 1916, there was a revolt against the Assyrian villages, and there was a great massacre of them, and they felt like they were going to be genocided. So this was happening by Muslims that were upset that they helped, in this war. And so then the French and the Russians and Great Britain decided to divvy up the old Ottoman Empire. And I don't know if this is SYXES, Sykes or Sixes Picot Agreement. And it was decided that the French would take over Mosul or Nineveh. Later, the events of September 11th, 2001, I told you in the last video, this is the opened a door to the prophetic events that are happening now in the Middle East. Because after 9/11, a man named Yonadam Kana, an Assyrian leader and a member of the Kurdistan regional government, requested the United States invade Iraq. Now this is the funny part. This has kind of been scrubbed from the internet because now they have another man that they have pinned all this on. But it's not really true because Yonadam, if you ask him point blank, he'll brag about it. Okay. He told the United States that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and that they planned a nuclear attack on Israel. So many Assyrians blamed Kana for the displacement of many Iraqi Assyrians citizens due to the 2003 invasion of Iraq, which ultimately caused the Second Gulf War. And what he told them is, hey, stay put, don't run, don't go anywhere, you're fine, no one's going to hurt you. You'll be okay. He told all the Assyrians this, and it was a bold-faced lie. And these are the Christians. I told you there were 5 sects of Christianity. These are the Christians which are getting beheaded in the Middle East. Nobody ever tells you that. They don't go, hey, yeah, the Assyrians are, occasionally you hear about Assyrians and whatnot, but these are the Christians, this isn't being yelled loud enough, that are getting their heads cut off by Muslims in the Middle East. Okay? In 2013, they said enough is enough and formed the Syriac Military Council, which brought relief to Assyrians who had been forced to leave their homes and became subject to years of Islamic oppression. These events that followed the Gulf War became motivation for the Assyrians to regain Mosul and create a new Assyrian empire. And that is what they have set out to do. Okay? That is what they're on a mission to do. If you go onto Facebook, you'll find tons of Facebook pages that are dedicated to Assyria, Independent Assyria, Assyrian Brotherhood, Assyrian Armenian Brotherhood. If I don't have that backwards. They have military, Syriacs in the military all over the world. They have, their language is very important to them as well. We're going to go through the mark of the beast, but their language is associated with that mark. And I'm going to show you how. But let's get through this because it is quite a study, okay? I'm telling you. these people are determined. Determined. I have never seen anything or anyone so determined to do something as I have seen these people. And it's funny because I look at people like WASPs and I look at their determination to change this country into whatever they want to change it into. And it just doesn't measure the determination I hear in the words, in the words of these people. They hate, we're talking extreme vitriol for Yonadam Kana, okay? Yonadam, let me give you a little more background on him. He did an interview shortly after the invasion, and he was in the office of one of Saddam Hussein's sons, which carried two swords, which were rumored that they were to take off the Christians' heads and other people's heads in Sharia law and stuff like that. There was two swords. One of them he sent to Rumsfeld. The other he keeps in that office as his office now. He has taken it over. It is a very interesting thing that he is an Assyrian man associated with this movement. He helped it greatly to succeed. And no, I do not believe that he has anything to do with being the beast. I don't see that. Okay. But they do have interesting words. And if I can just find my glasses, because you can't really read this. I've made it very small print. Okay. This is one of their posts on, and this was like in 2019 when I found this. It's from the Independent Assyria page. It says, "To my fellow Assyrians who have lost hope and given up on our nation, if the long and wonderful history of mankind has taught us anything, it's that there is no obstacle that cannot be overcome, no dream that is unachievable, that every problem has a solution. The seemingly impossible can be made possible. There is no such thing as unconquerable or undefeatable. We are the descendants of a once great nation. The greatness of our ancestors still dwells inside us. There is a new dawn upon the Assyrian nation, one like never before in our history. Assyrians now live in every corner of the globe, in the greatest nations in the world today. Our children are being educated in the best universities in the greatest nations. We are learning things in our adopted nations that our forefathers could only have dreamt of learning. Recent events have sparked a fire in the hearts of Assyrians across the world. It's only a matter of time before we get our act together and become a functional force." Another thing that history has taught us is that when a group of people really want something and they apply themselves, even against seemingly impossible odds, they achieve it. Having a country of our own might seem that way at the moment, but compared to other seemingly impossible feats humans have achieved, Assyria should be a very achievable one. No nation will hand Assyria over to us out of pity. No, we will have to do the hard work ourselves with some assistance. The greatest moment we will experience in our lives as a nation is when we have achieved that goal. I, for one, plan to experience that moment in my lifetime. If your nation calls upon you, answer the call. We owe it to our children. I'm sitting here with bated breath, okay? Because I'm holding my breath just reading that, because it's chilling knowing what I know. there's another scripture I need to read to you. I'm telling you, this is an interesting time we live in. Lord, where was I going with this? I might think of it in just a minute, because that just blows my mind. Let me put it this way. If I didn't know what it was, I would be inspired. Wouldn't you? That's amazing the way he wrote it. And this man doesn't really speak English. But that's the translation of what he wrote, actually. Now, let me prove to you that it's Assyrians. So in Numbers 24, we say Balaam, the son of Beor, meeting with Balak, the king of Moab. And we see him getting mad at Balaam, because as we know how the story goes, you know, he's on the donkey, he's going to meet with him, but God gets in the way with a big sword and a huge angel, okay? And he tells Balaam, you can't do anything without me, basically, just to make a long story short. So he goes, and you know, Balak wants him to curse him, but he ends up blessing him 3 times. And this makes Balak very angry. And he says, you know what? I'm not going to pay you now. And you're making me so mad that you need to get out of my sight. And he says, okay, well, let me tell you what's going to happen to your people by these people in the Acharit Hayamim, which means in the end of days. Okay? So he says, oh no, who can live when God does this? But ships will come from the coast of Kittim, or Cyprus, okay, to subdue Asher and to subdue Eber, but they too will come to destruction. Okay, so then we know that Asher and Eber are Assyria. That's how they're referred to in the Bible. Asher is the main god of Assyria. So we have a similar scripture. And it's in Daniel 11, verse 29 through 31. At the time designated, he, which is the king of the north, will come back to the south, but this time things will turn out differently than before, because ships from Kittim will come against him so that his courage will fail him. Okay, so let's put these 2 scriptures together. Oh no, who can live when God does this? At the time designated, he will come back to the south, but this time things will turn out differently than before. But ships will come from the coast of Kittim, because ships from Kittim will come from Kittim, right? Will come against him. So his courage will fail him to subdue Asher and to subdue Eber. But they too will come to destruction. We know that if we're talking about the final beast, the beast does come to destruction. But why is this in Daniel 11? Because we know how we can break up the scriptures in Daniel 11. The first part of Daniel talks about 4 Persian kings stirring up everyone against Greece. Okay? This is 1 through 5. We know that a king arises, okay? And this king does whatever he wants, as he pleases. Then he dies, and his kingdom is given to others than his own posterity. It's not given to his own children or his descendants. We know from history that Alexander the Great was the one who was the king of Greece, Cyrus, who was the 4th king, that stirred up everyone against Greece, which would be stirring up everyone against Cyrus. Cyrus stirring up everyone against Alexander the Great. We know that he died, and we know that Alexander the Great did not have any descendants to give his kingdom to, but it was divided up between his generals. So there you have it. Well, that's not the end of the story, is it? It's like, okay, so we know that from this, we know we're talking about Assyrians. Okay, in Numbers 24, we have Asher and Eber getting subdued by ships from Cyprus. It's no coincidence that Daniel 11 talks about the final beast, being that. So after 5 through 20, we have verse 5 through 20, and 5 through 20 are two kingdoms, okay? The north and the south. So if God is talking about the north, okay, these are these two kingdoms that come out of Greece, okay? We know that there's 4, but there's only 2 of them that it's talking about, okay? And if one of them is going into Jerusalem and surrounding Jerusalem, then we know what region of the world we're talking about, because we had Revelation 13 with those 3 beasts put together to talk about the region of the world where Babylon sat, Seleucid Empire, and where Persia sat. So that's the region of the world in which I have read to you is modern day Turkey and Iraq and Iran and all those places over there. Okay? Okay. Are you guys with me? It's a lot of information. So let's go over it again. So Assyria will rise out of the region of the world where Babylon, Persia, and the Seleucid Empire once stood. Okay? We know that God talks about 2 empires in Daniel 11. After Greece breaks up into 4 kingdoms. Okay? Then when Alexander the Great dies and Greece breaks up into 4 kingdoms. Those 2 kingdoms in verses 5 through 20, okay, are the Seleucid Empire, which is the kingdom of the north, and the Ptolemaic kingdom, which is the king of the south. Okay, so it talks about these 2 kings and their kingdoms, and it goes through the whole entire thing. In verse 20, we see that this king is defeated, the last king of the north. Okay, and it doesn't say who defeats him. It just says that he's neither broken nor in anger nor in battle. So he's not broken in anger, he's not broken in battle, he just disappears, basically. And what the story behind that is, that's when the Romans came down. They had already taken over the Ptolemaic kingdom, and they told the final king of the Seleucid Empire, which was dwindling, if you come over here and do anything, we just take your kingdom. And so he tried, and they said, oh, well, I guess you're just going to give up your kingdom now, huh? Because he failed. And he did. Now, does that mean that we have to include the Roman Empire in all this? No. Because the very next scripture is about the final beast. So it's 21 all the way to the very end, and I believe it's 45 or something like that, of this chapter 11 of Daniel. So we got the final beast being talked about in verse 29, okay, through 31. And we have Asher and Eber also being talked about in a prophetic way in the last days about how God is going to do something and then destroy this beast, okay? So I keep going through it because I want people to know. So we have a Persian king, Cyrus, who goes to battle with Alexander the Great from Greece. Okay. And then he, in turn, takes over. Alexander does. And then he dies. His kingdom is split into 4 by his generals. Okay. And they're given to them. And then God talks about 2 of those kingdoms in Daniel 11 from 5 to 20. And then he talks about that, the next king of the north. Because didn't he say he was bringing all the families of the kings of the north? Or the families of the north, right? Starting with Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, that's where we start. We say, okay, we have determined that it's Assyria. And all the families of the north are going to take over Jerusalem. Because he said so in Jeremiah, correct? So, then we have a statue in Daniel 2. Okay, to further understand this region of the world. The head of fine gold is Babylon. Okay, the chest and arms of silver is Media. Media is the inferior kingdom. And we also know that it was taken over in Daniel 5 and 6 by when Belshazzar sinned against God and he was killed, and the Medes and the Persians took over. Well, the first one to come in was King Darius, and he was a Mede, I'm sorry. So we know the Medes took over first. That would be the inferior kingdom. The trunk and thighs, or the, belly and thighs of brass or bronze, is Persia. And it says that in history, it says that Persia ruled the whole world at the time. And that is how they're billed in history. And that is how God talks about how they ruled the whole earth. Okay? That's how that 3rd kingdom came in. The 4th one is the legs of iron, and that's Greece, which splits off into 4 parts. Okay? So that is what happens to Greece. And then we have the final beast. I don't know what to call his name. I just know it's 666 right now, or 666 is what his name is going to add up to. So that's what I'm going to call him. 666. And then, his kingdom, Assyria. So we go to the beasts in Daniel 7. The lion is Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon, which God has humbled Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? Took away his wings, his eagle's wings. And we read about these eagle's wings in Isaiah, and about Nebuchadnezzar having them. Okay? And that just means he can quickly sweep up a kingdom. He can sweep over it and conquer it. Bear, which is Cyrus, because he's waiting to one side until Media is done. Okay? And all the other kings have come before him. He's got three ribs in his mouth. The bear does. And those could very well be the 3 kings that come before him that are Persian. And he's just there waiting for his turn. The leopard. These are the 4 Greek generals and Greek kings that are over that kingdom, which was Macedonia, which was the western kingdom. Pergamum, which is the eastern kingdom. Ptolemaic kingdom, which was the southern kingdom. And the Seleucid Empire, which is the northern kingdom. Okay? And the final beast, which is 4, and we've left out Media, okay, out of this list because it was inferior. it was just there to do a transition for the others. Okay? So God has left out Rome. God has left out media, pretty much. And this is 666, you know. This is the new Assyrian Empire that comes up. There's one kingdom, 10 leaders, okay, that show up. It's further reduced to 7, you know, 3 are taken out and uprooted. So that's kind of how we look at that. But here's an interesting thing. When we look at Daniel 8, and we see the ram, which represents Media and Persia, the longer horn that comes up last is Persia. It's Cyrus, okay? And then the horn on the he-goat, which is Greece, right? Greece is the he-goat, and the horn on it, it breaks, and 4 pop up. Now, God has an interesting way of saying this. And it says, the male goat then became extremely strong, but when it was strong, the big horn was broken. And in its place arose what appeared to be 4 horns in the directions of the winds of heaven. Here's the interesting part. Listen up. Out of one of them, that is out of one of those horns, came a little horn. So he's giving us a clue, okay? Which grew extremely big in the direction of the south and the east in the direction of glory. So, out of one of these horns, and what does God say? My families of the north, I'm going to bring against you, kingdoms of families of the north, right? Well, one of those kingdoms did reside in that region, and that was the Seleucid Empire. That's why we go back to Daniel 11 and we look at the progression of the Seleucid Empire. And by the time we get to verse 20, we're talking about the king of the north, okay, and how he goes away. And then it says, in his place will arise a king. And this is the final beast. So we know that we're still in that region of the north where the Seleucid Empire was, okay? We know it came out of one of those horns. It didn't come up out of the west, which that's what God would have called Greece or Rome or anything like that. That would be in the west. And so it's not from Germany. You know, if anybody thinks that the United Nations, United European Union, European Union, is going to be anything. No. It was done for financial reasons, not for political or, military type reasons. It wasn't made for a military. If it was, we would have stopped that long time ago. Yeah, we would have bombed them. We would have made sure that idea never got off the ground. Okay, but we supported that. The U.S. did. They supported that. Okay, so if we thought it was military action, it would eventually come against us. Oh, no. No. That was for financial reasons. Okay, they're not going to reduce to 10 because it's not 10 kingdoms. It's one whole kingdom with 10 kings. And how do I know that? I gave you a hint in the last video. Does anybody remember what I said? You should write these things down. I should write these things down, but I know that there are, it says out of this kingdom comes, you know, and it's talking about everything that's supposed to be one kingdom. And it never deviates from that, calling it more than one kingdom. Just because it has 10 kings doesn't make it 10 kingdoms. I know I made that mistake because I kept trying to put in there everything that you guys taught me. I'm not talking about some of you out there right now. I'm talking about my church. Yes, my church tried to teach me that it's 10 kingdoms instead, because of the 10 kings. And that, to me, that's the same thing that they tried to teach us not to believe in when those 3 wise men went out there, right? Oh, no, it wasn't 3 wise men. Well, how do you know? Because the Bible never says, right? Never gives a number, just gives 3 gifts. That's it. So we assume 3 gifts, 3 wise men. We assume 10 kings, 10 kingdoms. That's not true. You don't know. I mean, how many leaders has this country had? The United States of America. More than 10? Did we become a new kingdom every time? Or a new country? No, we didn't. It's ridiculous. See, some of these things that people have taught us, we need to completely throw out. They're false. All of it is false. And I just proved it with scripture. All you have, and it seems like everybody in my church always throws out Daniel 8 and never wants to address it. It's part of the equation. That's why it's there. And that makes me upset, because I know that if you guys really examine the scriptures, you can't deny what I'm saying. Because the kingdom that once was, now is not, but is to appear, the beast that once was, and when we talk about beast, we're talking about there's a 2-part beast, right? And it says he's coming up from the abyss. Well, here's the problem. Satan is coming up from the abyss. Okay? Satan is coming up from the abyss and taking over this region of the world with these people, creating the first part of the beast, which is the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian Empire once was, now is stateless, now is not, but is to appear. As you see, they're determined. What other country in the world that's been established at this point, or new country, do you see trying to be anyone for establishing anything other than Muslims establishing an Islamic State, which isn't any specific country? It's just a form of government and religion. But where do you see people saying, look, I want to start a country here. I want to bring back a country. That's the only one. So I'm telling you that the beast is Assyrian. Go and read my scriptures. I hope you wrote them down. If you didn't, rewind, start over. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I would love to answer your questions. If I haven't answered it yet, you tell me. The next video we're going to do is we're going to go over the whore. I'm leaving the mark of the beast to the last. Okay? But I'm going to revisit the Assyrians when we do. Okay? But that's it. The beast comes from the Assyrians in the Middle East, in the region of the world where Babylon, Persia, and the Seleucid Empire once stood. And they're going to surround Jerusalem again. I'm going to show you all those things, because that's another long video. I told you, these videos, if you were to put them all together, well, I mean, if I was to do a presentation of them all at once, we would have 3.5, almost 4 hours of material to go through. I did this relatively quickly, in an hour, or yeah, in an hour's worth of time. So I'm saving you time of sitting in front of your computer. Because I've seen people who put up 2.5 hours videos and 3-hour videos. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't do it. I don't like sitting through 3 hours of anything. My legs can't take it. I don't know about you, but I can't take sitting down for 3 hours. In fact, right now, I think it's been too long. I don't know, Jack in the Box. I don't know if you're going to give me. I might be in trouble. I'm advertising. I don't know how to blur that out. But anyway, yeah, there's your beast. And we're going to go through all the other stuff about the whore. And again, just bear with me. Just understand what I'm trying to say. Listen to what I have to say before you make any judgments. And I hope you all have a blessed, peaceful week. I don't know when I'll see you next. I don't know when the next video is going to come out. But just know that at this point, I have been told that the beast was coming to Tulsa to kill me. I've also been told that by the time I put out all these videos, maybe this one, because I'm specifically naming a group, that my life will be in danger, and that the other piece of the puzzle was the beast general is coming here to kill me. So that might seem crazy to you, but if you've seen all the things that I've seen, and you know all the things I know, it's not so far-fetched. It's possible. Okay? And I do put it out on my other page, my other Facebook page, as well as I put it on both of my Facebook pages actually, because, and one has a lot of Assyrians on it, a lot of Assyrian pages I have subscribed to, and there's a possibility it's ending up in their news feed. So, I don't know. We'll see. I've had a lot of people subscribe to me and unsubscribe. But I'm going to tell you what, if you're a Muslim, you're going to be defeated by Assyrians. If you're Jewish, you're going to be defeated by Assyrians. If you're American, you're going to be, or any type of American, like South American, North American, you're going to be defeated by Assyrians. We're all going to be defeated by Assyrians. Because we're all going to be conquered by the beast. It's coming. Okay? Don't doubt me on that, because it's true. And I hope all of you will read this information. So read Revelation 13, 16, 17, 20, Numbers 24, Daniel 2, 7, 8, 11. That'll help you with this. Until then, see you later, my friend. Bye.